This is Module 11, Breathing for Singing and for Life. Breathing for singing. Breathing should cause the entire thorax and abdomen to move up and out. You may have heard these words in your anatomy or biology classes. Thorax is another word for chest, so is thoracic. Abdomen is another word for stomach. Your chest should not heave or cause your shoulders to raise. So let's talk about the anatomy of singing muscles. Find each of these muscles on the pictures. I have here the abs and the core muscles because they are very involved in breathing for singing. Not so much for involuntary, normal, everyday breath, but once we begin to really learn to harness our breath for singing power, we have to learn to isolate and make these muscles something we can control consciously. Look at where the rectus abdominis is. These are the muscles that sit on that outer side, that outer layer of muscles, and they're right in the center. The external obliques are on the sides, and then you have the psoas muscles, which are connected at the back of the spine and come around the front and come down our legs. In the back, you can see the erector spinae, and that is something that helps us hold up our body and keeps us standing up straight so that posture is good, because posture and breath go hand in hand. Bad posture, bad breath. And the multifidus, which helps keep that lower back strong and helps with our core strength as well. And both of those things are also very important in breath. Now, the muscles involved in breathing specifically, let's talk about the muscles of inspiration. You have that sternocleidomastoid muscle, and that is something that we want to try to undo when we sing. We don't want to raise the shoulders or let the chest rise. And that is that muscle getting involved. And we want to quieten that muscle when we breathe for singing. Now, sometimes in regular, ordinary breath, we use it if we are surprised, or if we want to take a big breath before we dive, or something to that effect, that muscle will get involved. But we don't want that kind of breath for singing. The external intercostal muscles sit on the outside of our rib cage. The peristernal intercostals are right in the center and come right across the sternum. Then, of course, we have that diaphragm, which we talk about later. It's a strange word, but it's one of the largest muscles of our breath. And really the primary muscle, the internal intercostals are the inside of the rib cage, and they are also involved. We have the external abdominal oblique, and that is, like I said, to the sides and get around the rib cage. And the transverse abdominis, which is a large muscle and also part of the rectus abdominis. It goes across. And then, of course, like I said, the rectus abdominis. Now, you may say, well, Dr. Bernardini, I could have sworn that we learned that the diaphragm was the main muscle of breathing. And it is, except that it is attached to the rib cage. And because of these muscles having connective tissue in common, when some part of those muscles is tense or doesn't work quite right, then it can really inhibit our breath as a singer. So we need to be able to know which muscles we want to isolate, and we really want to be able to isolate those abdominal muscles. If you put your hand on your belly right around that rectus abdominis and go like a little dog panting or a baby breathing quickly, you can feel that rectus abdominis getting involved and contracting and releasing, contracting and releasing. This is something that you need to be able to do as a singer, because you need to know that the rectus abdominis is loose and working and not tight and held tight and tense ridden. When it's tension ridden, we just can't quite get the right kind of breath. So let's make it a little more simple. breathing for singing should be a little simple. When you inhale, the entire abdomen and thoracic cavities should increase in size. Think about a balloon. When you blow air in a balloon, what does it do? It increases in its size. Basically, your ribs and your lungs are like balloons. They get bigger as air goes into the body. Inhalation lowers the diaphragm and widens the lower ribs. Why? Because the diaphragm pushes out to the sides, which causes the dimensions of the chest or thoracic cavity to increase in both length and in width. Due to its incredible elasticity, the entire respiratory system stretches downward as the diaphragm lowers. This allows for greater lung capacity. That's why taking big stomach breath will help increase your lung capacity. The main muscle of breath, as I said, is the diaphragm, and I know it's a strange word. But what does this large muscle do? The diaphragm rises when it's resting. So when we're just sitting around and we're not taking a breath, you just hold your breath a second. The diaphragm is up in a bowl kind of shape, like it's an upside down bowl. When it contracts, it goes to the side and downward when it contracts, and that is what pulls down on the lungs and out against the rib cage. This action is induced by the brainstem and is an involuntary unconscious body movement. But like I said, when you're a good singer, it has to become conscious. Inhalation, diaphragm moves downward. Exhalation, diaphragm moves upward. Now see if you can feel that. Put your hand on your belly. Now take air in. Inhale, please. You should feel your stomach go out. Now blow all your air out. You should feel the stomach collapse and the diaphragm will go right back into resting. One more time. Inhalation, belly out. Exhalation, belly in. And as we've said, this is what makes the rib cage get involved. When you inhale, the muscles contract and the rib goes up and out. And the lungs get inflated. And the diaphragm, it curves downward. That bowl, that upside down bowl, begins to flatten out. When you exhale, the rib and the lung become smaller and deflate. And the diaphragm then goes back up to that resting position. So remember, air going into your body is like blowing up a balloon. But here's really the big deal. When you sing, you want to slow this process down. That's why it's hard. You have to make the unconscious become conscious. So if you can take your hand, put it on your belly, take that breath, put one hand also on the rib cage. Now take another breath. You should feel and be very aware that the belly goes out first, the rib cage goes to the side second. Do it again. Blow all your air out. Take that breath. And again, you should be aware. The belly goes out, the rib cage goes to the side. Being able to slow this process down and doing it at will is what will make you have great breath and tone control when you sing. If you can't control those muscles, then singing sort of becomes iffy. You don't know what it's going to be like at any given time. People who really master breathing for singing are people who are usually really, really great artists. So watch this next video on breathing. And by the way, breath is science and science is cool.